the New Orleans Pelicans are going to aggressively pursue a Brandon Ingram trade. According to Mark Stein, the Cavs, Sixers, Hawks, and Magic are all interested. I canceled out the Sixers and I canceled out the Magic because I really don't think it makes much sense for each team. I have a 3-team deal. I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but the 3-team deal is that the Hawks get Brandon Ingram and Dyson Daniels, the Pelicans get DeJounte Murray and Wendell Carter Jr., and the Magic get CJ McCollum and Clint Capella. For the Hawks side of things, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think for the Pelicans, they'd love this too, because now you have DeJounte, Trey, Herb, Zion, and Wendell. The Magic are the ones where I have trouble seeing if they would accept it, but that is just how the deal had to be formulated for the contracts to fully work.
I was going to say, going from Capella to Wendell, that's a hit because Wendell, although not a prominent three-point shooter, gave you that ability to space. With Capella, you essentially get zero of that. Getting CJ McCollum, they do need three-point shooting. I understand the logic there, especially with their guard play being as shaky as it is. I say that kind of hesitantly because I like Jalen Suggs, although he showed some inconsistencies in this playoffs, had taken a huge leap on the offensive side, especially with his three-point shot, and we understand his level of defense. But CJ, another one that you don't know what you're going to get on a consistent basis. Pelicans getting DeJounte there definitely would be intriguing to me. They do need a guard. They've needed a guard, a real guard for some time. DeJounte has shown the capabilities to be able to facilitate an offense, but you put that next to Zion, another guy that can create for himself and really run the offense himself too. I like that option. You give them a little bit of defense. Don't know how I feel about trading Brandon Ingram and Dyson Daniels, but you mentioned they would be getting Wendell Carter, right? Which is awesome for them too because you have Jonas Valanciunas, who at times becomes a negative for them, but you get Wendell Carter, obviously can rebound the basketball at a high level and also stretch the court so that now Zion has more room to facilitate in the paint. This trade makes a lot of sense, and obviously I look at the Pelicans and think this would be most intriguing for them, understanding that this isn't a knock on Brandon Ingram, but it's very difficult for him and Zion's game to continue to coincide. This season's not a great example of that because when they both were on the court, this was a damn great basketball team, and it's super unfortunate that both of them went out at the very end of the season, 2 weeks before the season ended for Brandon, and obviously come playoff time for Zion, because we were talking about one of the best teams post-All-Star break when both of these guys were on the court. And I think it's pretty unfair to him because he played himself a hell of a season, really took another leap as a playmaker, but I say better because they needed a point guard, a real point guard for some time. I do believe that is DeJounte Murray, and they do need a floor spacer, especially at the 5, and that is Wendell. This trade is not a knock on Brandon Ingram because I think he gets a lot of criticism for the Pelicans trying to preserve Zion. But truthfully, neither of these guys deserve blame because when they are on the court, we're talking about an awesome basketball team. Unfortunately, health has been a huge issue for both of those players.
I think Ingram getting a new team, change of scenery will benefit him. I'm going to name you guys the starting lineup for the 3 respective teams.
All right.
For the Magic, it'll be Jalen Suggs, CJ McCollum, Franz Wagner, Paolo, and Clint Capella. For the Hawks, Trey Young, DeAndre Hunter, or Bogey would start. Brandon Ingram, Jalen Johnson, and Alexander Sarr or Onyeka Okongwu, one of those two. And for the Pelicans, it's DeJounte, Trey, Herb Jones, Zion, and Wendell.
That's a pretty good lineup.
The Pelicans one, I already said, I love.
Yeah, that Pelicans.
I love the Pelicans one.
I don't know if it...
Because I'm doing everything I can to have Herb and Trey starting.
Yeah, I don't know if it moves the needle enough for them, but it's something you have to try. I think that's the Brandon Ingram trades in general. It's hard for me to find, and I liked your 3-team deal. I think all 3 teams kind of fill holes that they need on their respective teams. But it is hard to find, or at least I haven't seen, a deal involving Brandon Ingram that's going to drastically move the needle for the New Orleans Pelicans. I think if you're able to move this deal or make this deal and you get DeJounte Murray, you have someone that has been able to show to run an offense before. He's someone that's shown to be an all-NBA caliber defender before. I think the upside of that and the thought of that is great. But realistically, if I'm going into next season and it's DeJounte Murray instead of Brandon Ingram, I don't know if I'm looking at the Pelicans all that different as I did them coming into this season, for example. Yeah. It is tough. The Pelicans are in a weird spot where they have a lot of really good role players. As Drew mentioned, you want to find a way to have Trey Murphy, to have Herb Jones in that starting lineup, to give you defensive versatility, give you three-point shooting. They're kind of able to do a little bit of everything, especially at their size. It's something every team would covet. But the Pelicans are also in the situation where they have a player in Zion who hasn't played in the playoffs a ton. He had the one playing game against the Lakers where he looked amazing. He was dropping 40. He looked like the best player on the court. But a player who's kind of unproven so far, one, because he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and two, because the Pelicans as a whole haven't been winning enough to really have big playoff moments. But you're also kind of stuck because you don't really have a second star to put next to Zion. And I think what we've seen really throughout the NBA right now is you need two dudes. You need two dudes. You need to be able to build around them and have guys that fit their role. I think they have the perfect guys to fit their role around Zion when you're talking about Trey Murphy and Herb, and even CJ to an extent, kind of that older veteran presence point guard that could hit threes and kind of settle down the offense at times. But I don't know if they have enough to, at the same time, go get a second star while also keeping the depth on their team. I think that's a issue that a lot of teams run into when they're trying to get that second star, even a number one star, is to find that balance between having the depth and having, continuity while also bringing in a real needle mover here. There's also a couple of trades that I had on Fanspo, but now I lost it. But the number one trade was like a 5-team deal, so I wasn't that interested in that. One that interests me was, I think, a team that we've all seen in trade rumors is the Golden State Warriors. This felt more like of a reset for the Pelicans to me, but this deal would be the Warriors acquire Brandon Ingram. The Pelicans would be getting Andrew Wiggins, Dario Saric, and 2 first-round picks. I don't know if that moves that enough for you. If I'm a Pelicans fan, I'm looking at this and saying, what are we doing?
Wiggins is just such a negative asset at this point. I just can't trust what he's going to give me.
I'm saying no.
Also saying no.
Pretty easily, truthfully.
Another trade that I saw here was with the Indiana Pacers. So the Pacers be getting Brandon Ingram. The Pelicans are getting back an insane package. I don't know if they're getting all of this, but this was Nesmith, Ben Shepherd, Andrew Nembhard, and 3 firsts. I do not think you get 3 firsts. I think you could probably get 2 of those players in a first. I don't know if you're getting the 3 young players outside of Jarris on this Indiana team plus 3 firsts. I think a Pelicans fan drew this up, but I think that's another team, Indiana, that could potentially be going to look for another shot creator. But in the same breath, you kind of have Benedict Mathurin, who's kind of in the in the shadows. Not really in the shadows. He's been great, but kind of that player that I think could give you some of the same stuff that Brandon Ingram's going to give you, especially offensively as a one-on-one player. But I think they're another team that's kind of looking to level up this offseason.
Yeah, I think Indiana, they got a lot of players they can trade. I was looking at Indiana's roster top to bottom, and they just really got a lot of dudes, bro.
They do.
Tyrese, Nembhard, Nesmith, Siakam, Turner, great starting 5. McConnell, Ben Shepherd, Obi Toppin, Isaiah Jackson are really good off the bench. It didn't even mention Benedict Mathurin yet. That's 10 right there.
The fact that Jarris Walker gets no burn, too, and that was a top 10 pick.
Jarris Walker was a top pick, like you said, and he's getting no burn. And it really just goes to show just how much depth the Pacers have. They just have so many guys, and not everybody can get minutes. So maybe moving on from somebody, from a couple players, could maybe bring in a guy like Ingram. But it's also that they're not giving a lot of money to these players either.
Yeah.
So it's hard to match the contracts. I would love to see a Paul George to Indiana reunion.
Me too.
That would be pretty hot. I'm pretty sure NBA fans would love that, understanding. Yeah. I mean, that's what created the legend that is PG.
I just don't know how realistic it is because of the contracts. I had a Cavaliers trade. I don't know if you had a Cavaliers trade.
I've seen some, but they all kind of suck.
Yeah, so my Cavaliers trade for Brandon Ingram, the first one is Darius Garland for Brandon Ingram, clean swap.
Darius Garland for BI.
I think Cavaliers fans would hate to see him go. But would
you have Donovan run the 1?
Donovan run the... Yep.
Yeah, with Ingram, Allen, Mobley.
When were they playing their best basketball? Although the schedule was light when he was running the 1.
I do think you probably have to make a move one way or the other. And I would move off Garland before Donovan for sure.
The second trade package is Jared Allen and Karis LeVert for Brandon Ingram. So the Cavaliers have Garland, Mitchell, Ingram, Mobley.
Move off Garland.
No, I say this every single time we talk about having big depth. We talked about it earlier. You have Mobley, you have Allen. That is a luxury. That is not a bad thing. I don't care if sometimes the spacing is brutal. Jared Allen played arguably his best season of basketball this year. It's unfortunate he's hurt at the worst time possible. He was awesome. I don't want to hear people say that he needs to go. That's foolish.
So you don't like the big three of Garland, Mitchell, and Ingram?
I respect Garland's basketball ability. I don't know if it's best suited next to Donovan Mitchell. I know Donovan's he tries to instill as much confidence as possible. Donovan's a great teammate. He is. I'm not saying he's not, but at the same time, we see Garland play his best when the ball is primarily in his hands and really running the show. You can't do that when Donovan's on your team. And it's not fair to Garland, but it's kind of just the unfortunate reality because he's better.
Looking at these lineups, the first trade package, you'd have Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, Brandon Ingram, Mobley, and Allen. And then the other trade package, you have Garland, Mitchell, Strus, Ingram, Mobley. For the Pelicans, if they get Garland, it's Garland, CJ, Herb Jones, Zion. The center's a question mark because Jonas is a free agent.
I don't love that backcourt.
And then the second lineup is CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion, and Jared Allen.
If I'm the Pels, I'd rather get Jared Allen that deal.
Yeah, I understand. But at the same time, you're kind of stuck with that same problem that you already had with Jonas. It's a guy that really can't stretch the floor that much.
No, I think
I think he is.
I think Jonas's problem is not stretching the floor; it's his defense.
That too. That's another thing.
Jared Allen's gonna come and be one of the best.
Yeah, with Jared Allen, you don't need as many like Larry Nance minutes.
And I also the CJ Garland backcourt, I don't like. You could have great defenders around them, but I don't know if Herb Jones is going to be able to cover up everything
unless you're trading CJ.
I don't know.
But there's more moves you have to make if you bring in Garland.
We've seen the Cavaliers last year be the #1 defense in basketball with Donovan and Garland as the 1 and 2.
Got bounced in the first round.
Of course, but that was also because Garland wasn't great or wasn't, the level that you were anticipating, and Donovan wasn't that great either. And Jared Allen also got exposed.
The whole team was bad.
Jared Allen got exposed by Mitchell Robinson pretty terribly, truthfully. I don't think it would be insane to see that. Garland, CJ, of course, if that were to
you
to
also
be
have the back line of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen in that case anchoring your defense, unless you'd have Jonas and Zion.
Yeah, CJ as my sixth man. Also, I wouldn't hate personally.
It's gonna like 38 mil.
Start Trey Murphy.
Start Herb Jones. Zion at the 4, at the 5. Who'd you say? Jonas, yeah, which is not great.
But someone else
so CJ has 2 more years left on his deal. 33 mil cap hit and 30 mil cap hit.
They trade. Who they trade for? Who was the Rockets big man who was out for the year? Steven Adams.
Yes.
Or not Rockets.
No, the Rockets have him.
Rockets,
the Rockets have him.
My apologies.